General Howe, who was the commander-in-chief of the British Army in America. And he wrote this to him: "Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it." I close this paper with a short address to General Howe. "You, sir, are only lingering out the period that shall bring with it your defeat. You have yet scarce begun upon the war, and the further you enter, the faster will your troubles thicken. What you now enjoy is only a respite from ruin, an invitation to destruction, something that will lead on to our deliverance at your expense. We know the cause with which we are engaged in, and through a passionate fondness, or it may give us grief at every injury which threatens it. Yet when the moment of concern is over, the determination to duty returns. We are not moved by the gloomy smile of a worthless king, but by the ardent glow of generous patriotism. We fight not to enslave, but to set a country free, and to make room upon the earth for honest men to live in. In such a case, we are sure that we are right. And we leave to you the despairing reflection of being the tool of a miserable tyrant."
Yes.
Now, that's the spirit that we need for America. We need a spirit that says we're going to stand up, we're going to be proud to be Americans, we're going to fight when it's hard, we're going to savor our victory, and then the enemies of America will will despair. That's what we need for America. Now, excuse me one second. Sorry about this. I'm not going to go over all the first principles, but just to emphasize. But I'm going to go through all the first principles, but very quickly. What makes America unique? First is the rule of law. The rule of law means that the law will govern, not the personal desires of our leaders. This is the opposite of what most countries are built upon. Most countries are built upon the leaders, the political leaders, whatever they are, the junta, the Communist Party, whatever it is, whatever they want goes. In America, we said, no, we're going to have a country built on the law, and you have to follow the law. Not just the people that, the underlings, the subjects or the people, but the entire country, which means the president to the person in jail, from the janitor to the CEO. Now, I want you to think about where we are today. The mayor of the great city of Detroit is rotting in prison because he did not understand the law applied to him. Really? We have, just open up the pages of any newspaper, any week, and you'll see the politician who didn't think the law applied to him. I mean, look at New York, look at Chicago. I mean, I don't have to go through the litany for you. How is it that we laid down our lives, our founding fathers did, to fight for the rule of law, and then we have such corrupt politicians in power? Unalienable rights. This one mostly, by the way, how many people say the rule of law? Every once in a while you hear that, but it's pretty rare. Not most politicians will adhere to it. Unalienable rights. These rights are endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights, which means that God has given us the rights, or if you prefer, nature and nature's God, the laws of nature. That means that governments have not given them to us, that they are inherent in us, who we are as people, which means that we don't go and beg the government for our rights. Now, it seems that a lot of people think it's the opposite, that what they think is the government, you can't do anything unless you get permission from the government. That's not how it works. The government is our servant. We've been given our unalienable rights from God, or nature, nature's law, and the purpose of the government is not to tell us what we're free to do, but to serve the people. Equality, because we're all children of God, or from nature, we're all equal, and we need to be treated the same. And now I'm going to skip a couple of them, but I want to talk about limited government for a second. When's the last time you heard a prominent politician really talk about limited government. And the purpose of governments are instituted to protect your rights. That's what's in the Declaration. Founding Fathers said, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to have federal government to do that, we need a very limited federal government. We're going to have this thing called the 10th Amendment that's going to stop the government from being too big, and only the powers that are not given to the federal government will be reserved to the states. And that we will have a government dedicated to very specific things. They're called enumerated powers. And if it's not an enumerated power, you don't see it there, it's not allowed to do it. So what do we have today? We have a lot of people that believe that the federal government should do whatever it wants. You blow your nose the wrong way, geez, there ought to be a federal law. You heard Sheriff Richard go through a litany of items. Okay, there's a big list of items that are questionable. The issue is that we have a government that's supposed to be of limited power. And most people disregard that, don't understand it. It's not, this was the fundamental basis, the fight in the Constitutional Convention. How much power should the federal government have? We're going to list it down, we're going to have a written constitution, and now it's ignored. There are politicians where you ask them, can you tell me what this big huge bill with 3,000 pages, you tell me what part of the Constitution that's based on, and they scoff and laugh and act like you're an idiot.
You have to pass it.
Okay? So that's the exact opposite of how the federal government's supposed to work. Now, you might say to yourself, well, Judge Moore, you've painted a really desperate picture. You said we have to stand up, we have to fight, be patriots, but well, what can we do? Well, first off, you're here, you're engaged, but this room and other rooms need to be filled with people that are willing to fight for constitutional principles. And that means, and I actually say, I'm delighted, I know not everyone is, but I'm pretty delighted that there are people on the streets marching and having rallies and bringing attention to some of these issues. I'm not going to say I agree with everything that every one of them says, because that's ridiculous, but it is our fate, our country, we have the absolute God-given right to go out and make our voices heard. And you should never let some politician tell you that you're artificial turf or that you shouldn't be able to go out and make your voice heard. And so one thing is to get other people involved, get engaged, etc. There's a lot of, in the book I go through for YouTube, it's America's Survival Guide. Michael Warren, okay. www, America's Survival Guide. The beginning of the book goes through the first principles, the Revolution, Constitutional Convention, the Civil War, the Civil Rights struggles. And then the last chapter of the book is all the things that we can do. And I have education reform proposals, we have media reform proposals, political reform, but I want to talk to you about the one thing that was mentioned, because I'm very proud of it, and I have to share a lot of credit for it. It's called, with others, it's called Patriot Week. Now, some of you have been to Patriot Week activities, some of you have actually participated in Patriot Week activities. As participants, I really appreciate that, but to give you a very short overview. America, as we know, lives in our hearts and minds. And so we need to keep that fire alive. And how do you do that? Well, if you're a religious person, and I happen to be an adult convert to Catholicism, believe it or not, the Holy Ghost found me in Ann Arbor in law school. Okay? This is one of us again. So I've come to really appreciate the liturgical calendar. We have Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Pentecost, Easter, Christmas, all of these days. And the Protestants have the same thing. Why do we have that calendar in Christianity? Because it renews our spirit and our faith. And in fact, all the religions have it. Judaism has it. The Muslims, Islam has it. Hindus. You look at any religion, they have these key days. Again, because it forces you to put aside the hustle bustle of the day and do first things first. So America used to have a civic calendar. We had Washington's birthday, Lincoln's birthday, Memorial Day, and Independence Day was not July 4th, it was Independence Day, and Thanksgiving, and Armistice Day. And what have we done? Like we've done with education, we've taken the real meaning of those holidays and stripped them away. We have taken, for example, well, let me tell you how the founders thought.